Good afternoon, everybody, from a very blustery, blowy Burnt Island. This is my studio, and I'm going to show you a little bit from one of my sketchbooks today. Hoping to start doing this fairly regularly. So today, going for this green sketchbook here, which I shall take over to the light. And open one-handed. This is a small sketchbook. It's that size. And I'm going to skip past the Bass Rock, start here. So the pages I'm going to show you today are from a trip that I had a couple of years ago, a family holiday, and we stayed on the railway line in Helmsdale. Just hoping it's going to focus. Okay, yeah, we stayed in a brilliant self-catering house, which is in fact the old railway keeper's cottage at Helmsdale station. Looking out of the house windows, you're looking out onto the platform. And stayed there as part of my Scotland by Rail project. It's an ongoing project. And basically it's about travelling around Scotland by rail. So, this first sketch here, a lot of the ones, or possibly all of the ones I'm going to show you, are done in really lovely artist drawing pens made by Faber-Castell, and they're called Pitt pens. This sketch was done sitting in the Timespan cafe. Timespan is a brilliant museum in Helmsdale, and this is sitting in the cafe looking out onto the lovely garden and across to the bridge over the river. Scribbly sketches from a coastal walk. This sketch on the right here, this lovely, I called it the hideout. I thought of it as the hideout and it became a painting, a small watercolour painting called the hideout. Dunrobin Castle tea room. Dunrobin Castle, a very impressive place. A fantasy Disneyland-like castle. I love views out of windows, as I've already discussed in my last video. And there's this beautiful circular window in there, reminding me of a circular window I painted on the Bay of Scale, at the Bay of Scale, on Orkney, years and years ago. Now, looking down from the castle balconies, the formal gardens, these topiary, can't remember what species these bushes are, but box, probably. And I just saw them as big, lumbering creatures, which I'm sure come awake at night and dance through the gardens. Now, down amongst the dancing topiary, looking up at the castle. Okay, Forsinard Flows, RSPB Nature Reserve. The Nature Reserve Visitor Centre is on the platform, Forsinard railway station, and you can walk out onto the bog and get to a tower, a lookout tower, which has recently been constructed. Gives you a really good overview of the bog, something that you wouldn't otherwise see standing down at bog level. And this is an extremely diverse, important habitat, yet when we were there it was so wet and we saw almost no wildlife at all. But we did see these two swallows, which had been nesting, I believe, in the lookout tower. There was evidence of nesting and roosting in there. And that sketch on the last page and this sketch here became two watercolour paintings, which are both now in the collections of other people. So I've written here from Forsinard Flows, RSPB Tower, rain, two swallows nested in here, one meadow pipit, one frog, 14th of August 2018, 11:30 AM. Now, leaving Inverness 6:30 p.m. for Helmsdale, Caledonian Canal. I'd gone down south for a day, and coming back up I decided to just sketch the whole way from Inverness up to Helmsdale. I should have said at the start that Helmsdale's on the line from Inverness up to Thurso and Wick. So now you're going to see all the sketches which I made on that several hour journey from Inverness to Helmsdale. Bales and Bewley Firth. You can decide what these were. Sometimes in train sketchbooks like this there are blank pages. So that blank page will be there because I saw something that I really needed to sketch and thought to myself, as soon as I get back to the house, I'll add that in. Who knows what it was? Invergordon. Riggs, murals, there are these big murals on the walls at Invergordon station. Bulls beyond the platform. Red fleeces, suddenly all swapping sides. Ah, right, okay, there must have been a bowling green beyond the platform. All wearing red fleeces, suddenly everyone swapped sides. Invergordon Distillery. Pipes crossing over the line. This house at Fern, House Martins nesting in its eaves. Leaving Tain, a swift, my last of the year. The Dornoch Firth, really brilliant lights as the sun was going down. End of the day, 8 p.m. Here using the big, broad-bristled sketching pens, but also using some fine pen on top. Ah, a swallow. And around 100 grey lag geese. Carbisdale Castle. Jennifer and I had been talking about Carbisdale Castle, somewhere that she'd stayed as a kid, and so I was looking out for it on the journey and managed in the almost dark to get this sketch. This is the castle, by the way. Luckily I've written river, island. Now this is an example of a thumbnail sketch. I saw this scene, I thought I really must paint this one day. River curving down in an arc and curving back up here, but it's a very abstract, very quick sketch. So I've also put this thumbnail sketch to remind me that is what I want to turn this into. Most of these things never do get turned into them. Lairg Station, like a Highland croft cottage, and then Rogart, heathered hills down which we walked on my 21st birthday trip with Dad, Mum and my brother Rowan. I remember that so well, staying in the old railway train carriages, which are now a hostel. And there were killer midges on top of the hill. We had to eat our lunch walking backwards and forwards on the hilltop because it was just impossible to stop for any length of time at all. Beyond Rogart, a heron on the pond edge, 5 mallards. It's such a good thing to birdwatch and wildlife watch from a train or a bus or a journey of any sort. Loch Fleet. From near Golspie, 8:50 p.m. far off lighthouse I mean. So here's close up of the lighthouse, and then down here I decided I needed to do a little drawing to put the lighthouse more in its context. Oh yeah, these lovely tussocky humps in the dunes just before Helmsdale, 9:05 p.m, very last light. Now, next day, or another day on the same trip. This was a wonderful day, probably the best day of the whole holiday. And we got the train, as you can see, at 9:47 a.m. Got the train north to Wick, got off in Wick, explored Wick for a little while, got the bus, caught a bus from Wick to John o' Groats, had a 2-hour walk at John o' Groats looking across to Orkney, then bus from John o' Groats to Thurso, little while to look around Thurso, then the train from Thurso to Helmsdale. Completely by public transport, and what a day. Raven flying past. Dark sweeping arc over one whitewashed house. On right. Here. Sunlit moor at the very front. Loch Lucy at 4. Loch Lucy ? Mature tree, granite grey building on left. One tufted islet. This is what you see when you're up in the far north of that far north line. Miles and miles and miles of moor. Here are two of my miniature paintings on found ceramics. I was putting these on the artist support pledge the other day. You can see here, painted on a very, very small piece of ceramic. This is the viaduct. Steam train passing. And this, the ship. Sorry. Miles and miles. Trying to focus again. Miles and miles of moor. I intended to make these sketchbook videos 5 minutes each. I see I'm at 12 minutes. Nearly finished. The bus from Wick to John o' Groats. I think I said before that I don't sketch from buses because of feeling sick, but it seems that I managed to do a few on this day. Tank defences in the foreground. Lighthouse. I so love lighthouses, as you can see here. So when we stopped for our lunch break up at John o' Groats, all the lighthouses I can spot from the lunch spot at Ness of Duncansby, 1 kilometre east of John o' Groats. Sunny, breezy, clear views with Dad and Rowan. Dunnet Head, far and hazy, that's on the mainland. Then Stroma, sunlit. A tern flying past, the island of Hoy behind it. Orkney, a light. Orkney, this one is very far off and hazy and may not be a light. Muckle Skerry, Duncansby Head. I intend one day to do something more with this. We'll see. You'd think that during lockdown I could have worked on some of these projects. We have made a raised veg bed. Muckle Skerry. Oh yeah, this was an amazing band of rain coming in, sweeping from left to right across the scene. Muckle Skerry completely changing how it looked, moment by moment, as it went into shadow, into light, dark rain behind it, light blue behind it. Hoy is Orkney, our islands that I dream of and love, but Hoy in particular, where I've only been once with Jennifer, and Rackwick Bay, where Sylvia Wishart painted and George Mackay Brown was so inspired to write, and Sir Peter Maxwell Davies composed, is an amazing place. And the Old Man of Hoy, of course, and the first glimpse that you get of the Old Man of Hoy as you're getting the ferry from mainland to Stromness, as we did, Jennifer and I, years ago on a Royal Scottish Society for Painters in Watercolour travel scholarship. And then, having done that, I discovered in the family photo albums a photo of me and my mum and my dad. I think it was Dad holding me when I was just a little baby, and in the background were the cliffs of St. John's Head, tall cliffs, and the Old Man of Hoy. So I had been there before, but had forgotten all about it. Writing the story of that day. Now, barn owls, which we came across, which I discovered after a few nights of hearing them and eventually managed to locate them. This is the story of what I saw. walking out one day from the station cottage, this old church, which I think is now converted into a house, I think. Sparrowhawk flew from cropped sycamores to the church, low across the road, up the grass, over the rooftops. From the sycamores, low across the road, up the grass, over the rooftops. Sparrowhawks really cling to the landscape like that. Nearly at the end of the trip, southwest of Helmsdale, this is heading home, departed 9:46 a.m. Dunrobin Castle gates. Glimpse from the train, it's a request stop. You have to stick out your hand for the train to stop, just like with buses. No one requested it that day. And Heron Island. I'd noticed this earlier and managed to sketch it again on the way down. And I think, yes, the next sketch is the Mars, the wreck of a ship on the Isle of May, 25th of August 2018. So I'll leave that for another day. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this, and thank you. See you again.